What's up everybody, this is your boy Nick, back at you again today from Winning Lifestyles, and I want to share with you my stock investment strategy for 2021. Now, this works really great for me because my income is well below $125,000 a year. If you're wondering where I came up with that number, it's from the IRS's income limit for contributing to an IRA in 2021. Now, we'll talk about the Roth versus traditional IRA coming up soon, but let's go ahead and get started with the most obvious choice to do, and that is investing into my 401k, 403b, or 457b up to my company match. Now, the reason why you want to do this is because the company will literally give you free money. That's what the match is. And the beautiful thing about these accounts, the 401k, 403b, 457b, is that they are pre-taxed. Now, we'll talk about all of these in more detail in the future, the pros, the cons, the similarities, the differences. So make sure you hit subscribe, ring the notification bell, and smash that like button just so that it shows up on your feed as soon as we get that released. But what I will say is that the only reason why I'm not going all in and maxing out my 401k, 403b, and my 457b is the expense ratios. Now, my part-time job matches only 1%, so it's not that much, but it is worth at least getting free money. The problem is, even though I am still invested with Vanguard through my employer, the expense ratios on the funds are ridiculously high. I was checking this out, and wow, VFINX, which is the Vanguard S&P 500 Index Fund, it's an investor share model. So my fees, my expense ratios are literally 0.14%. If I bought this out in a regular IRA, the fees would only cost 0.04% in the fund, and that ticker symbol is VFIAX. And if I wanted to buy it as an ETF, which we all know is just VOO, that expense ratio is only 0.03. It's just crazy how much more I'm paying in expenses. Like, if you want to think about it, for every $1,000 that I'm investing, I have to pay $14 in fees, versus if I did it myself in an IRA, I'd only have to pay $4 or even $3. So food for thought when you're looking at your employer-based plans, always check the expense ratios. If my expense ratios were much lower, like the one for Susie's employer-based 401k plan, I would definitely go for it. Like, hers are just 0.01, 0.03 for an S&P 500. And that's not the only thing too. If I'm looking at my other investments, I also threw in some money into a growth index fund and a mid-cap index fund, and the expense ratios for that are 0.17%. It's ridiculous. If you're looking at it in your IRA, it's way cheaper. And I guess the second reason that I think about it is the funds that I can choose from my employer-based plans are very, very limited. If I wanted to go through and try and buy essentially every single stock on the market, it'd be a little bit harder because I'd have to Frankenstein my own total stock market index fund, which we'll talk about how to do in the future, so just stay tuned for that in a future video. But that now brings me to the second step in my investment strategy, and that is maximizing my Roth IRA. Now, I know a lot of folks are gonna ask, traditional, Roth, traditional, Roth. And I'll be honest with you, it totally depends on your situation and your numbers. When I sat down and estimated how much I was gonna earn throughout this entire year, I figured that the Roth would be much better for me because I am nowhere near breaking into the next income bracket, and the amount of taxes I'd save just from doing a traditional IRA weren't worth the potential gains I could have long term. And you know, Chris, Jen, and I were hoping to have multiple income streams in the long run, so chances are our tax bracket's probably gonna stay the same or even get a little higher when we start pulling it out. So we wanna hedge our bets and go for the tax-free growth in the long term. Now again, make sure you crunch the numbers yourself, because if you can use that extra little tax deductions to invest and make a lot more money, then it may be best for you to stick with the traditional IRA. But even if you stuck with the Roth IRA, what I'm gonna say is, if you qualify for an HSA, and in order to do this, you just need to make sure you have a high deductible healthcare plan. Just check with your employer if you're getting insurance through them, or check up your insurance provider themselves and ask them if you do qualify. There's specific numbers to it. I think like single was $1,400 per year in the deductible, and families it was $2,800 per year. That's what's considered a high deductible healthcare plan. Then you qualify for an HSA. Now, unfortunately, I don't qualify for that, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't look into it too. We'll have a whole video again specifically talking about what the HSA is, breaking it down, and why it's so great because of that triple tax deduction benefit. You can still invest and max out your Roth IRA and take advantage of more pre-tax contributions through an HSA if you qualify. So definitely include this line item into your strategy if you can open one. Now, once I've maxed out my Roth IRA, that gets me to my fourth step in the strategy, and that is maxing out my 401k, 403b, or 457b. Now, if I had the option for both, I would go straight into the 457b, and the reason for that is because I can take out the money whenever I want to without having to wait till retirement. Like no penalties, no nothing. That's the beautiful thing about 457bs. You usually get them if you work for the government or through a nonprofit, so make sure you check with your employers if they offer one. And after that, that's when I'm gonna start investing back into my 403b or 401k, just because I like the idea of automatically investing, reallocating my funds, and not having to think about what I want to buy with each paycheck with extra money. And the beautiful thing is that if you have both a 457b and a 401k or 403b, you can contribute and max out both at $19,500 a piece to get a total tax reduction of $38,000, because all of those contributions are pre-tax, and you're able to use that to lower your taxable income. Now again, I just want to say, maybe this might not be the right situation for you. If you don't have an emergency fund set up yet, it might be a good idea to start building that up. If you follow Dave Ramsey's baby steps, you're all for that $1,000 emergency fund to start with and then throwing everything at your debt. But for me, I'm a little bit more conservative. I like to go for a 3 to 6 month emergency fund just in case, to really hedge my bets, especially in this kind of economy. But at the end of the day, we at Winning Lifestyles, we're not financial service advisors or anything. We're just doing this for entertainment purposes, educational purposes, for funsies. So please make sure you do your math and do your own research to pick the best plan for you. But once I've got all of that maxed out, that's when I'm gonna choose to go and start investing into my taxable brokerage account. Now, the one thing I'm gonna say is if I find that the funds and the market isn't really performing the way I want it to, maybe I'm going to stop and decide to not fully contribute into my 401k, 403b, 457b, and start throwing more money into a taxable brokerage account, because then I can really control where my money's going, and I like to try and learn how to do fundamental analysis, technical analysis, just like how I have a bunch of different checking accounts to really bin my money and make me feel like I'm really poor every time I look at just one account with a tiny, tiny balance. I've done the same with my brokerage accounts, and I've basically divvied up and created a portfolio for dividend investing, a portfolio for growth investing, a portfolio for trying to learn how to do options, and I just take a look at it whenever I have the time. Now, I understand this may not be the most efficient way to grow my money, but that's okay because I'm in it to try and learn, and I'm hoping that with time, I'll get better and be able to build wealth at a much faster pace. And like I was saying before, each person has their own style of investing. Like Andre Jick talked about in one of his videos, how he was trying to figure out the best way that worked for him. He tried the index fund investing and he realized it just wasn't for him, but now he has a very successful portfolio that's all about dividends. So, you know, I like the idea of replacing my income with dividend stocks that are tried and true, like the dividend aristocrats and everything. And also, I like looking at balance sheets and learning how to do technical analysis to see if my picks on companies actually make sense. Like, I'm always down to look at the next steps in innovation and where the world is going to go next. And being able to look at balance sheets is a skill that I think everybody should try to have, if not for big companies, at least for your own finances. But with that being said, folks, thank you so much. If you made it to the end of the video, you're a true homie. Go ahead and comment down below with a smiley face. And as always, feel free to let us know down in the comments if there are any other videos you'd like to see us make. We're still learning too, and we'd love to learn how to build wealth, well, together. Until the next video, everybody.